Okay, so this is your week 4 notes, part 1. I broke it into 2 different parts for you. One, because it seems a little bit overwhelming. We wouldn't have done this all in one day. And because it's brand new material, I didn't want to overwhelm you with one video. So you might want to watch this one day, and then maybe the next day or later on in the day, go back then and start to watch part 2 of your notes. So with the notes for today, we're going between the 3 different forms of a quadratic. I'm going to give you one form, and you should be able to go into other forms. Again, the part 1 notes, I slow it down a little bit, and we're just going to go from one form to one other form. When we do part 2, you'll have one form, you'll have to go to the 2 other forms. So as you can see, this one we're starting with putting it into vertex form. In week 3, we worked on vertex form. So if you need to go back and look at anything, when it talks about vertex form, if you're a little bit stuck, need some extra help, look at week 3 notes, videos, classwork, whatever you need, that should help you. So all we're going to do is convert something that's in standard form and put it into vertex form. Again, these are your own notes. If you kind of run out of space, you can use whatever space on the side that you need to, but we're going to go ahead and complete the square. Remember, we group our x's together. If it doesn't have an x, it goes on the outside, and then we have our minus blank. Take half the middle term and square it, and that's what goes inside your blank. So half of 12 is 6. 6 squared is 36. And so if you were to actually factor that, it's a perfect square trinomial. So x minus 6, that quantity squared, would be the same thing twice. And then you type this in to get your answer. And so then it's just minus 27. So again, we already practiced this. Now we're just putting it all together. So that's putting something in standard form into vertex form. Now what I want you to do is now go the opposite way. And this we have not done before. Now I want you to take something that's in vertex form, and we're going to put it into standard form. And again, the work that you'll do on part 2 and what you'll do for your classwork when you're turning it in is to be able to go between the forms. Okay, so when something's already in vertex form, we have to expand it back out. So we don't want any parentheses in our answers. That's what we're looking for. When we put something into standard form, no parentheses in your answer. So we're going to take the part that's squared. If anytime you have something squared, like if I say, what's 5 squared? Well, you know it's 25 because it's 5 times 5. So you take whatever you have that's squared. We're going to write it down 2 times. Okay, I'm also going to bring this minus 27 down. It's a part of the problem. A lot of times we forget it if we don't go ahead and write it down. And I would just, right now we're going to ignore the minus 27. And I want you to FOIL or multiply, however you remember those words. And I want you to multiply this out. We've done this before. It was in the last unit. X squared minus 6x plus 36. You can bring that minus 27 down. And then we just combine like terms. These are like terms. These are like terms. And so we're going to put the y equals back in front. So y equals, and we get x squared, negative 6x minus 6x, be careful, don't cancel them out, is minus 12x. And 36 minus 27 is plus 9. So this is taking something that's in vertex form and putting it in to standard form. And again, that's what we're practicing, just going between the forms. Part B, same exact concept. Think about like what looks a little bit harder about this problem. Yeah, there's that negative 3 out in front. Don't let that bother you. Start the same way. The very first thing I want you to do is if you see it squared, let's write it twice. So we're going to do x plus 2 times x plus 2. And then you can write everything else down. We use a different color just to make sure I can talk about what's happening. So everything else just comes down. Well, start with the pink part. Don't worry about all the extra parts. Just start with the pink. Let's simplify that all the way down, and then we'll bring the purple parts back. So we'll do x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 4. Let's go ahead and simplify it. Combine like terms. X squared plus 4x plus 4. All right, well, now we're going to bring back the purple parts. Let's put everything in parentheses here because all that's still together, and we'll bring down everything else. Okay, and then if there's something connected to the parentheses, we know to distribute, and then we'll combine like terms. So negative 3x squared minus 12x minus 12. Once you've multiplied it, you can take off the parentheses, then minus 5, and then we combine like terms. So y equals negative 3x squared minus 12x, and then minus 17. And that's putting it from vertex to standard. And now we'll mix up even more. And this time, we're going to go from factored form to standard form. So basically, it's what we just worked on, except factored form usually starts with 2 parentheses. And again, our whole goal is to make it work out where you don't have any parentheses left. So you can probably go ahead and do both of these on your own because it's basically what we just practiced. So if you want to pause the video and try it, that's fine. And then otherwise, I'm going to just keep going. So here we're going to do x squared plus 4x minus 5x minus 20. Combine like terms. So x squared minus x minus 20. Just stick that y equals back in front. You know I'm really big on the notation. It's not an equation if you don't put the y equals back in front. All right, and then here, again, you can do the 2 first, but like what we've been doing all the rest, I would multiply your 2 parentheses together and then put the 2 back in. So x squared minus 3x plus x minus 3. Combine like terms, x squared minus 2x minus 3. Put that whole part in parentheses, bring down the 2. Now distribute the 2. 2x squared minus 4x minus 6. And again, put that y equals back in front. Or you can use f of x equals just to make sure that it's an equation. And then all we're going to do on the other page is practice a little bit more. The more practice you have, the better off you'll be for when you go to do your classwork. I did make some changes on this worksheet, so if you want to go through and make those first. On the first one, we're not going to graph. There's no graph, so we're not doing that. And then they use the word, which is totally fine. It's just not a word that I've used. They use general form. General form is the same as standard form, because that should look familiar. Because you're not used to those, if you want to change the wording to say standard form, totally fine with me. And then we're not going to do number 9. So if you want to cross those off, make those changes real quick. And again, most of this, you should be able to pause the video at this point and try these problems by yourself to see if you're prepared to do your classwork. Because you just have to be able to go between the different forms. So if I were you, that's what I do right now. I would just go ahead and pause it and then try to finish it off and then unpause and see how you did. Or otherwise, you can just follow along with me. All right, we're putting this into vertex form. Again, if there's not enough space, you can use whatever area you need to or use a different piece of paper. Totally fine. When we go to complete the square, the x's go together. Plus 4x plus blank minus 4 minus blank. Half the middle term squared, so half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. And I get y equals, and then the quantity of x plus 2 squared, and negative 4 minus 4 is negative 8. Again, it's what you just practiced in week 3. Done. All right, same thing. We're putting this in vertex form. So same exact pattern. So x squared plus 16x plus blank plus 69 minus blank. Half of 16 is 8. 8 squared is 64. And so we get y equals x plus 8 squared, and 69 minus 64 is plus 5. So that is going from standard form to vertex form. Now we're going to go the other way. Now we're going to go from vertex form to standard form. Now these will take a little bit more room, guys, so you might need to use either the open space up here or just kind of like start it and then keep going. That's what I'm going to have to do. If you can write really small, it'll all fit there. And number 4 is a little bit longer. So again, take the part that you have here, like the part that's squared, write it down 2 times. Okay, work that part out, and then we'll add back on the 2 outside parts. Or If you want to do that right now, totally fine. You might want to be careful. Maybe use different colors if you have it. So you know that you need to do that part last. Don't do that right now. So we're going to do x squared and then minus 3x plus 9. Combine your parts in the middle. So we get x squared minus 6x plus 9. And again, you can add back all the other parts now. Multiply by -4 and subtract 1. So if I distribute the -4, I get -4x squared plus 24x minus 36 and then minus 1. Combine like terms. So y equals -4x squared plus 24x and then minus 37. And again, we do it again. So same thing. It's just so you practice. This part where you have to write it twice and multiply it is kind of the new part. It's not that we've never seen it before, not that we haven't talked about it, but there's extra parts with it. So sometimes we make some careless errors. You just got to be careful. So x squared plus 7x plus 7x plus 49. Combine like terms. Bring our other parts back. Sorry, I lost my pen. And we're not graphing these. If you're like, oh my gosh, I get really big numbers, we're not graphing them. It's okay if your numbers get a little bit big. -3x squared minus 42x minus 147 and then plus 7. And so then y equals -3x squared minus 42x minus 140. Now, if you happen to like have a problem where I did say to graph and you're getting numbers that are like your C value, your y-intercept is -140, something probably is wrong. So sometimes there are some indications if maybe you're making some mistakes, but if you're not having to graph, it's okay. All right, so let's finish off with the last two. We're just going to put them into factored form. You've got this. We practiced it in week 2. You did an excellent job. These are 2 of your easier factoring problems to do technically. I might not have given myself enough room, so if you need to, again, you got all this extra space over here. Numbers that'll multiply to give you 24, add to give you 10. So we're going to use 4 and 6. Okay. So x squared plus 4x plus 6x plus 24. And we group. Definitely didn't give myself enough space. I'll put my final answer out to the side. So then we get x and x plus 4. 2 parentheses have to match. 6x and 24 have a 6 in common. So y equals, there's not a number out in front. Like I didn't factor out a number, so you don't have to worry about putting anything in front. The 2 parentheses match, so I'll write them into 1. And I take the parts on the outside. And we're good. So same thing on this one. Numbers that will multiply to give you 10, add to give you 7, and we're going to use 2 and 5. Hopefully the factors are getting a little bit easier. I told you, the more you practice, the easier they get. So I'm hoping that's getting a little bit better for you. So we're grouping. And we do x, x plus 2. This one needs to be x plus 2. 5x and 10 have a 5 in common. And so I'm going to get y equals 2 parentheses that match and the parts on the outside. And that's it. So this set of notes showed you how to go from one form to one other. So like from vertex to standard or standard to vertex. Where what you're going to do in the part 2, you still need to watch the part 2 notes, because what part 2 does is it's going to go from standard form, and not just from standard form, but immediately into vertex and factored form. Or it might start in factored form and you have to go to the other 2 forms. And in that video, I tell you what form it has to go into first before you can do anything else. So please don't just skip over and not watch your part 2. Again, take a break. I'm not saying you have to watch it right now, but I would make sure that you come back to either later today or definitely tomorrow so that you're able to finish it off and can finish your classwork and your assignments that you have due by the end of the week. Again, make sure you write down any questions or whichever problems maybe you're stuck on and bring questions to the check-in.